Welcome to another episode of Leveling Up Mastery Monday here at EXP University. Cari and I are so excited for you to join us again. We hope that you guys are tuning in every Monday because Cari and I are starting off all of our Monday sessions. So we're excited to be here. As always, we are live in YouTube. We're live in Workplace. So send us a chat. Make sure that you tag us because we want to make sure that we don't miss any of your messages. And we're also in the world.
Yes. Excited to see you guys. Happy Monday.
Yes. Happy Monday. So last week we had such a fun conversation around being a goldfish because Cari and I are quirky and we like to have these fun conversations. So if you missed that, check it out in Workplace or even on YouTube because the videos are still there. But today we're going to be talking about engagement. We're going to be talking about retention and really building a culture in your community. I had a team reach out to me last week specifically about retention because they have a great onboarding system and they feel like that they're doing all of the things, but they're still having a high turnover. Yeah. So how can they build retention within their community, within their tribe or their downline? So if your downline is struggling to build and maintain relationships, which result in turnover and low productivity, today, we're going to be talking about 5 ways that leaders can support their agents to retain the talent and to boost production. So if that's you, you're in the right place today.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. It's certainly an ongoing, struggle or challenge or opportunity, however you choose to see it.
Yes, opportunity for sure.
For every single person. No one is immune to it. We always have to work at it. It doesn't matter if you have a few friends at EXP that you want to keep together. Maybe you run a networking group and it's that group of people that you want to keep moving forward in a positive way and staying with you. Maybe it's another business entity. Maybe you have a team, more of a traditional team in real estate, or maybe it is that you're focusing on really bringing a lot of great people to EXP and your revenue share organization is what you're focusing on. But anything that you're doing, that you're bringing people into your world, this conversation, I think, is going to be valuable to you. And it is something that everybody needs to be considering all the time and finding new ways and new opportunities because it is truly kind of an ongoing thing. You don't just plug and play, put something together, and then it just works forever. It is kind of like a working document, so to speak. It's a living and breathing thing that you should always be putting some amount of attention on. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. And for those of you who don't know, one of my Gallup strengths is input. I think it's like my third in my top 5. And so with input, I'm always collecting data and I'm doing research and I really like learning is my number 1 strength. So anything that I could do to like learn and just be more engaged and like understand a concept better, that I really like that. Yeah. So when Cari and I started talking about retention, the first thing that I did was I actually went and looked up some articles based on scientific evidence around retention. Because when we report these things to you guys or when we have these conversations, I do want them to be backed by science. They're not just something that Cari and I are just talking about, right? They're not just something that we're making up or that we think is beneficial. I want you guys to see like this is something that affects not just real estate agents, but on a national level. How is retention impacting businesses? And so I pulled up 2 articles that I'm happy to share with you if you reach out to me. They're with McKinsey & Company. You don't have to have a subscription to read these articles, and I'm happy to share them. So like I said, reach out to me in Workplace. But here's what it said, Cari. According to research, which was done in 2021, this article was published in 2022, 55% of U.S. workers are dissatisfied with the number of and the quality of relationships within their professional networks. 55%, that's more than half. Yeah. Additionally, you guys, 72% say that they have low sponsorship and 69% have report low mentorship. That is a huge impact that we're having. If we want to talk about turnover, this is why. There's also scientific evidence that comes out of Fierce Inc. If any of you read Susan Scott's book, Fierce Conversation or Fierce Leadership, she talks about that there's scientific evidence to show that we as human beings 99% of our decisions are made by emotion first and logic second.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about the people that we connect with, if we think about the products, Cari, that we buy, the products,
Yeah.
Nike, Coca-Cola, Tesla, why do we consistently, like, why does the consumer consistently buy those things repeatedly? Why are they so popular? It's because those companies have emotionally impacted us somehow. We think about, Cari, in real estate, people who refer us, people who are repeat customers, people who continue to support our business. They help us grow. They want to be connected to us. Why? Because we have impacted them on an emotional level. That's called emotional capital.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what we're going to be talking about today, is how can you impact your downline emotionally? How can you impact the emotional capital so that they stay connected with you? You're building the culture and you're really investing in the relationship. That's the most important thing I want you to take away today, is how can you invest in the people? How can you pour into them? Because, Cari, we know that when people feel connected to something, when they feel like that they're adding value, it increases their worth, it increases their own view, their confidence, and they're more productive, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. And I love these stats. Stats are very important so we can understand. The good news is when we understand what the reality is out in the outside world, we're not so hard on ourselves, here. Like we always compare, the outside to our insides, and that isn't always reality. But when you actually can take facts and go, okay, so if I have 75% of my people satisfied, then I'm better than the average, which is 55%, right? I mean,
Right.
I like that because we do beat ourselves up. If it's not 100%, we think everybody else is 100% and we're not, and then we suck. And that just, quite frankly, is a self-sabotaging behavior, because when we feel bad about ourselves, we don't show up in our best light. But also, it brings awareness to the reality that this is a problem and we should be working on it. Right. So I think that if you really want to increase your engagement and help strengthen the network that you've created and ultimately retain people within your team, your networking group, your co-working space, like we are, plus the revenue share group, whatever, your real estate team, whatever it is that you have,
Right.
then you have to do some things. And so I love the 5 things, and I know we're going to go through those. The first one, energizing employees through meaningful work, is really key here. I think that, people want to find meaning. They want to be part of something greater than themselves. The thing is that, I've heard this story a few different times that, there's a janitor who shows up to work every single day, positive, excited, happy, grateful, humming to music, listening to his headphones, enjoying the work. And what is it that he gets so much joy out of cleaning, a school or, whatever, a facility? And it's not about the work that he's doing. It's about how he frames it in his mind and what he thinks about when he thinks about his work, that he loves it, that it allows him to meet the people or have the relationships in the building. It allows him to create a healthy, clean, great, safe space for kids to go to school. It's like we have to have a sense of meaning that creates a more fulfilled and happier life. But it's all about how we think of it, because we could have an extremely obviously meaningful job, and we could say the wrong things to ourselves about it and not feel like it is meaningful. And we could have something that we struggle to see has meaning and turn it into meaningful in 1 minute. And so how do you do that? And how do you lead other people through your example? How do you share those things to them and remind them? How do you create a culture that talks about that? How do you energize them through letting them know they do things that are meaningful? And I think his job is to remind people of that all the time.
Well, and I also want to encourage you, if you're listening to this, like, this is a great mastermind topic to have with your downline, because having a sense of meaning creates more fulfillment and ultimately a happier workspace. Yes. So how can you as the leader be having these types of conversations? This is something that we want to give people permission to talk about. We want to encourage it through trainings. A lot of people it's difficult, Cari, to control our thoughts, to understand that we have control over how we are interpreting things.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this last week. You said it doesn't matter how something happened in it doesn't matter how something happened to you in the past, like what the truth was. What matters is how you remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you teaching your agents on how to remember things that have happened to them and make the workplace more meaningful? The second topic or the second key that we want to talk about today is investing in relationship development with your downline early on, like during the onboarding process. During onboarding, we want you to be reaching out. We want you to be inquisitive, asking them questions, understanding what someone's motivation is. Pour into the people who want to be poured into. If people are asking for more, believe what they're asking. Develop the relationship very early on. You want to make that connection. That's how we impact people on an emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing during onboarding to ensure that people can reach out to you, that they can connect with you, that you're a real person who's interested in guiding them and leading them?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the reality is that we are people, and we are people that are relationship driven. We're social creatures. Even if we're introverted, we still are social creatures in that we need to have some amount of relationships. Like, nobody is really created to just like not have any relationships and be alone, right? And so I just think that it's important to realize that, especially people in real estate. I mean, in reality, most of us are pretty social, or we wouldn't be realtors. We do like relationships, or we wouldn't like this job. And there are some exceptions to that rule. But the reality is that the relationships are really what matter. And I was taught this when I was growing the real estate brokerage and the large expansion team. And I've carried it with me through what I'm doing now and everything in my life, which is people don't leave companies. They don't leave organizations. They don't leave businesses. They leave people. They also don't join brokerages. They don't join companies or organizations. They join people. And that's because we are driven by relationships of people as human beings naturally. And so if people are coming to us because of the relationship, then we better figure out how to stick with that relationship. And yes, it has to change over time. And that's because maybe size of organization changes and dynamics of culture change and all that. But it has to be a priority, and some systems need to be put in place. And then really, as a leader, you're not going to be able to be the only relationship for everybody, because you're going to be stretched too thin. So how do you create relationships among other people? Because that's going to be the stickiness. So as an example, we've created, little subgroups inside our big group, of people that have similar things. If they're moms,
similar niches, connections in the local area,
lifestyle, whatever, hobbies, stay-at-home moms that are navigating real estate or raising kids, whatever the case may be. How do we, team leaders kind of coming together, people leading so they're learning from each other? How do we connect people in subsets and kind of help them find people that are going to pour into them, and vice versa, and have a good relationship? So that would be a great tactical tip that you could do, whatever organization you're growing. How do you get the people in your organization to start connecting and developing those relationships as well? Because you're not going to be it for everybody.
Yes, making it scalable.
Yeah.
So number 3 is to promote culture and development. Listen, agents who feel that they have the opportunities to grow and develop are more likely to stay. And Cari, you and I actually brought this up a couple of weeks ago on a previous episode. We talked about one thing that you do is immediately when someone joins EXP, one of the questions that you ask them is, what do you like to teach?
Yes.
What are you really passionate about? And if you had the opportunity to talk about this with a group of people, would you do it? And you actually provide an opportunity for new people coming in or existing to share something that they do really, really well through teaching or through coaching. And you provide the platform and the space, and people can tune in to a mastermind almost every single day within your growth collaborative. But that's how Cari creates the culture. She provides an opportunity for someone to grow, for someone to learn, to showcase their own skills and their talents. And she also provides coaching for people for no additional charge. She wants to be able to coach people if they're willing to do that, but she creates the opportunity. So when you are looking to retain your talent, what are you doing to create the culture? Well, first of all, have you even defined your culture? I guess we should start there. What is the culture that you want to create? Yeah. And then what action steps are you taking to ensure that this culture is being developed? And then you're communicating it out to your downline, providing them every opportunity through video, through text messages, through email to connect and be a part of the culture. Are you personally inviting them and asking the questions? What are you really good at? And if you had the opportunity, would you want to be of value to other agents?
Yeah. Super important. I love it.
Let's dive into number 4, Cari, which is leaders provide the resources and the environment to balance stress and well-being. Holy cow. Like, how many of us are actually doing this? They're providing resources to balance stress and well-being. Burnout comes to mind, right? Resiliency comes to mind. What are we doing to promote mental well-being? Encouraging people to take the time that they need to be in the right mental place. Coaching, training, conversations. Are you bringing in, Cari? We've even brought in people in our organization to talk about meditation, to talk about rest, to talk about just having the ability to be more spiritual, to give yourself opportunities to find the transcendence that you need, to understand burnout. What are the signs of burnout? This is such a powerful conversation.
Yeah. I mean, you have to recognize that people are burning out. You have to recognize that they might be burning the candle at both ends. You have to assume that most people are doing that, and then bring these conversations into meetings, do a video about it and send it out to everybody, send some text messages, just reminding people like business is important, but don't forget to take time for yourself. Just little touches like that, and be the leader to bring that. Again, it's just part of the culture. It's a part of the conversation. People grow into the conversations around them. So if you're having all these different conversations and you're doing it yourself, it's going to leak into your business. It's going to leak into your people, but you have to be very intentional and purposeful about it. And so, make it possible for people to manage their personal life, their work life, and their health, because if their personal life or their health is not in a good place, they will automatically believe that their work is not in a good place, and they will leave. They will go find some greener grass, because talented people can go make money anywhere. And oftentimes they don't leave because of anything to do with maybe, the business itself. It might actually be that there's some other things going on and we didn't help them to figure those things out. And we always say, well, as a leader, is that our job? Not our job to help them necessarily figure it out, but our job to help bring awareness to it and help get them resources, but also bring in experts or make different connections, and just provide an opportunity where they can figure out that, they don't have to drive themselves into the ground. They can have all things, because it is possible. We know many people who it's possible for, and hopefully you're working on that as a leader yourself, because you shouldn't be talking about something that you're not doing yourself first. So this is a big one, and it's probably one of the biggest reasons people leave organizations is not because of business problems, but because of personal problems or things in their life that are not going well. And they basically equate that to their work.
So how are you promoting mental health and well-being, and talking about burnout, talking about pushing yourself too far? I know so many women in real estate who are moms, wives, and they're devoted to being a mom and a wife. And at the same time, they're a full-time mom, they're a full-time real estate agent, and they don't even give themselves permission to rest because they feel like that they constantly have to compete with themselves, and they feel guilty. That's something else that is we're not going to dive too far into that today, but it's the guilt of if I rest, if I'm not on 100% of the time, then I feel guilty.
Yeah. And that is a serious issue with most entrepreneurs, women and men alike. I just got off the call with one of my newest business partners, who is a young man who is just so hard on himself and sells tremendous amounts of real estate, 300 transactions a year, and still is hard on himself because there's more he could be doing, and definitely doesn't embrace resting. And, you know, there's something inside all of us that, and for other reasons, and, you know, usually past things that kind of trigger us to be like, if we're idle, then we're worthless, or, you know, we're lazy or whatever. And so it's a real challenge. But if we understand that our personal health, our personal relationships, our mindset, our mental health is actually part of our job description as an entrepreneur, it's not separate from. We need to stop thinking about it as separate from. It is actually part of our job description.
Right.
Then we can put it in our calendar and we don't have to feel guilty about it because it's actually part of what we need to do in order to be able to grow our business. It changes the way we feel about that. And most of the time, people, when they can think of it that way, will start embracing it a lot more. And that's a great tactical tip that you can bring to your people is, why do you think that resting, why do you think that taking care of your relationship, why do you think that taking care of your health is something separate from your business? It's not, because if these things are not good, it's going to detriment your business. If they're good, it's going to help your business. Therefore, it is part of your business. You are your business. Put these on your calendar. They are part of your job description. There's no guilt associated with lead generation, so there should not be guilt associated with working out. And that is actually a true fact. One book that I would recommend is Living Forward by Michael Hyatt. If you haven't read that book, if you're a leader and you want to understand a little bit more, there's a bunch of statistics and a lot of research they had done around employees, but it's the same thing if you have agents on your team or employees on your team or in your revenue share group or any other business you're growing, is that if you understand fundamentally how these things impact the way people feel about their jobs and their work and their leaders, you're going to have a whole new mindset around creating a culture like this and coming from this perspective. So that would be a great action item. And it's a very short book. If you listen to it on Audible, it's done in like an hour or something like that. So it's a really easy read.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cari. I think that this is a really, like, mental health and well-being is very important to continue to talk about. So maybe that's something that you and I can chat about in a future episode. But finally, you guys, the last point that we want to make is that leaders who retain the most talent also motivate their employees or their downline through financial and non-financial incentives. This is really important because, while a salary or, you know, as contract employees, yes, money is important, but you know what else is important? Feeling valued.
Yep.
And why is it that, you know, our children who are in school, when they get a gold star or a sticker or stamp on the hand, they love it? Like, how many times does, like, your little kiddo come home when they have a little stamp on their hand? It's like, great job. And they're really excited about it.
Yeah.
It's because recognition is really important. So what are you doing to recognize people in your organization and help them to feel valued? And the thing is that, Cari, a lot of times this doesn't have to be done publicly. Some people prefer and like being recognized publicly, and others don't. Yeah. So there's actually a really great a book that talks about the love languages in the workplace. So we've got, oh my gosh, is it like the 5 love languages? They actually have one for the workplace. And you can take this test online if you want everyone in your, you know, company to be doing it. And you can understand, how do people feel appreciated in the workplace? Do they want a pat on the back, a handshake? Do they want words of affirmation and appreciation? Where really, I would just be calling you, Cari, and I'd be like, hey, Cari, thanks so much for this amazing episode today. I'm so happy that we're in partnership, and I'm just pouring love into you and just letting you know that I appreciate you. Do they want quality time with you? If quality time is your love language or your appreciation language at work, what are you doing to ensure that you're meeting one-on-one or with a Zoom or having coffee or providing lunch opportunities for people who are really productive and they want to just be coached by you? They want to be a part of your network in your group. There are so many different ways that you can incentivize people and make them feel special. That's not financially related, because, Cari, not everybody is driven by finance. A lot of people are driven through the motivation of making an impact or making connections or building relationships. So we as leaders, we have to determine what that is. Yes. So we can do this and also scale it.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, I love all of these things. I mean, not everybody is the same. And as a leader, if we treat everybody the same, we're going to have challenges. And the really important thing to note as a leader is that people aren't necessarily like you, nor do they think like you. So that was actually a really important leadership lesson I learned early on in my leadership, which is somebody asked me, why do you think everybody thinks like you do?
Right.
They don't. You're you. In fact, the person told me in a joking and lovingly way, like, you are not a normal person in a lot of ways, like the way you think, right? So like that, most likely, most people aren't thinking like you. So stop thinking
Assuming.
everybody thinks like you, and then you want to respond to it that way because it's just not true. And so what you need to do instead is get out of your own self and go try to get to know people and understand them, and let your limiting beliefs or your assumptions, stay on the wayside, so that you can actually go and do what you need to do for those people, motivate them in different ways, incentivize them in different ways, lead them in different ways, connect them in different ways. And so it really comes down to a skill of listening and a skill of removing assumptions, a skill of really getting to know people and deep diving into relationships, and then hearing what you really need to hear, and then moving forward in response to that. And that is a very, very strong leadership skill that everybody should strive to develop. It's not always easy and it takes some time, but if you are aware that it's something you need to improve upon and you work on it, it can make some big impacts.
Absolutely. So to recap what those 5 leadership skills are for agents and teams and employees actually nationwide, which is where this came from, here are the 5 key things that leaders are doing to retain their talent and to improve production and confidence. Number 1, they're engaging their employees through meaningful work. They're investing in relationships very early on. We understand how important building rapport is. That's what they're doing. They're building the bond over time. The third, they're promoting and developing culture. Number 4, they are providing resources and environment to balance stress and well-being. Mental health is important. Let's prevent burnout, you guys. And then the 5th thing that they're doing is they're motivating people through non-financial incentives. They're recognizing people's successes. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Like I said earlier, please reach out if you want the full research and the full article, because I really think that you could actually turn this into some masterminds or training opportunities for your own downline or the team that you're on. Reach out to Cari and I if you have any other questions. We're just really honored to be here and excited to be with you every single Monday. We'll see you guys next week.
See you. Bye.
Folks, put your hands together for Cari and Haley. Amazing as always. If you want more of that, make sure that you hit the notification bell, get subscribed, because they're going to be They're going to be back with us next Monday. They are with us every Mastery Monday, helping you level up together. So, my name is Alyssa Specht. I'm with eXp University. So excited to see you again. And let's keep on rolling, my friends. So let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever been in a situation where you end up showing 1 house, 2 houses, 3 houses, so on and so forth, and then eventually you're like, are these people actually serious buyers? Because I'm getting the feeling that they're not all that serious right now. I know that I've been in that situation. There's a chance you've been in that situation too. So that's what we're going to bring you this next class. This next class is going to give you 10 criteria of a valid buyer. So without further ado, let's toss it over to Brian Ernst.
Worked with a buyer and, well, they never bought a house, or you worked with them for 6 months, 8 months, a year. Maybe you have one right now. You have one right now like that. And you take them out, you show them one at a time. The buyers are driving you nuts. Are you in that situation? They're not buying and you can't quite figure this out. If you're in that situation, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Brian Ernst, and today what I'm going to cover with you is the 10 criteria of a valid buyer, or we can call it the valid buyer criteria checklist. Valid buyer criteria checklist. Does that sound right? Sounds good to me. All right, let's get started. Here are the 10 criteria of a valid buyer. Now, if you have all 10 criteria met, the likelihood that you're going to sell them a house is pretty high, and it's going to make your life so much easier. So much less time running around to houses that are the buyer's never going to buy. You're going to waste time trying to get the showings. We're dealing with the the listing agent, the sellers, all this other stuff. Let's cut through that all today. if that's okay with you. If it is, great. So thanks for being with me. I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate you taking your real estate career seriously too by listening to this video. And if you have any questions, anything like that, you're welcome to reach out to me. The best place to reach out to me is brian@brianernst.net is my email address. And if there's anything in this video that you'd like, I'm happy to send you a copy of it. So let's get into it. Number one, the first criteria on the valid buyer criteria checklist is they're willing to meet ahead of time. They're willing to meet ahead of the showings, meet with you. You can take them to a coffee shop, Starbucks, whatever, and this is where you sit them down and you walk them through the process, and this is the part where you qualify them, but you set the expectations. All right. I can't tell you how many times people take a lead. How about a Zillow lead? And you just meet them at the property. Okay. And how many times are they not even qualified, didn't get pre-approved or whatnot, or they couldn't even buy that particular home. Sometimes that's okay because that's like the meet and greet, and then you get things straightened out and then you kind of go from there. But let's skip a step. Let's set the right expectations from the beginning. Meet ahead of showings. That's the first criteria, that the buyers are willing to meet ahead of time. Zillow lead is not going to be the one you're going to work this with. Okay. These are just regular buyer leads, right? Number two, they are motivated. They are motivated to buy a house. They are motivated to move forward. They want to buy a house. They have a reason to buy a house. Expanding family, contracting family, marital transitions, if you want to say it politely. Whatever it is, they need more space, less space. They're going to move. They're motivated. That's number two on the checklist. All right. Not to be confused with number three, which is they are urgent, because they can be motivated but they still have 8 months left on their lease, and they want to ride that lease out because they don't really want to waste that or pay lease cancellation fees. So they may be motivated to buy something, but they're not urgent. So number three is they are urgent. Okay. I got to filled out your life here. It's going to get a lot quicker to get through this buyer transaction. So number four, they are willing to disclose any financial information that you need to get them properly qualified. They're willing to disclose. They're willing to share with you information. Okay. It's so important that you can collect that information from them, which leads me right into number five, that they get fully pre-approved through underwriting with all their paperwork submitted. Yeah. To be a valid buyer in my mind, they need to be fully pre-approved through underwriting, not automated underwriting, actual underwriting. All right. And every piece of paperwork's been submitted that they can do up until this point without picking a property. Now, I get all kinds of pushback on this. So let me give you a couple different things to help you out with this, to get them fully pre-approved. And I have a lot of people said, Brian, my credit score is good. I have no problem. I can get a loan. That's not an issue. Okay. Are you fully pre-approved? No. Okay. So let me explain this so that you can save yourself a lot of pain and possibly a small fortune. This is why you want to do this. Number one, this is number one, or getting fully pre-approved, not the valid buyer criteria checklist. So why do you want to get fully pre-approved? Real simple. Number one, the sellers don't know who you are. Neither does the listing agent. So if you said, yep, I can buy this house, they need some paperwork that proves that. Okay. And if I'm your agent and I'm trying to represent you, it's really hard for me to do that with the listing agent when I have nothing else to back that up. So it's showing who you are, that you can actually do this. It gives you credibility. Another reason, let's say number two, on why to get fully pre-approved is you are a stronger buyer. You can actually close quicker. You can close quicker because you don't have to go through the whole mortgage process, all the different time frames of submitting paperwork, the time frame. You get that all done ahead of time. I have lenders out there that can get things done. I don't want to quote too many numbers here, but fairly quickly, within a couple of weeks or even less. And we're talking as quickly as 10 days, but you're talking about, depending on the state you're in, how fast you can get title pulled up and that kind of stuff. But very quickly versus a 45-day closing, which means you have a stronger buyer, you're a stronger offer, which leads me to point number three, is that may help in negotiations. Okay. That's why you want to get it fully pre-approved, because you can say, hey, we're as close to the cash as we could possibly be. All right. You're not. You still have to do with your appraisal and the survey, but not all listing agents are that sharp, I'll be honest with you. Okay. And it may push your deal ahead of somebody else's if you're in a multiple offer situation. So you want to make sure that the buyer is fully pre-approved through underwriting with all the paperwork submitted. All right. So that was number 5 on the valid buyer criteria checklist. Number 6, what else do you need to make this buyer valid in my mind? Well, ideally they're non-contingent on selling their home. Non-contingent on selling their home. But Brian, they have to sell their home to get to the next home. Okay. Meaning they can't buy the next house because they need the money from their current house to get that one, or whatever the qualification says, they have to sell one, buy the other. Great. Okay. Get their house listed, get their house under contract. Don't do a home sale contingency. It's just not a very strong offer. A home close contingency is stronger because you said you have a contract on your current property. You want to buy the next one. This has to close to get into this one. Now, it's not the strongest of offers. And if you can get around the buyer being non-contingent in any way, shape, or form, that's what I would recommend, as long as there are no legal ramifications or too much risk to the buyer. Okay. Because sometimes you can write in the contract that, non-contingent, and if the deal doesn't go through, that's different. Okay. And you still have a house to buy, still have a house to sell. So just be clear on that. Ideally, you want a buyer who's non-contingent. All right. Or make the buyer non-contingent. That's number 6. And if you can't solve number 6, that's okay too, because now that seller is a have-to buyer. They have to buy because they're going to be homeless. So it's good. A little stressful for the buyer, and they are a seller too, but that's okay. All right. Now, if you can't complete this step 6 on the criteria fully, I will give you the option for some extra credit. Okay. That will still meet 10 criteria. I like that. Extra credit. I know. School, homework, whatever. On next one, number 7. Number 7, if this is a valid buyer, they are willing to spend time to find a home. Willing to spend time. They will actually spend time to find a home versus like, nah, I don't have time to do that. Or no, I can't look at this house tomorrow, maybe next weekend or weekend after next. That property will be gone if it's that hot of a property. So they're willing to spend the time to buy a house. That's number 7. Number 8. You must have all decision makers present. You must have all decision makers present. Please have all the decision makers present. And even if they're not going to be on title, on the contract, that's okay. It may be the parents, the relatives, siblings, kids. They want to be there for that. Bring them there for that, so that you can get your buyers to actually make a decision when they're looking at properties. That's ideal. Get it done quicker. All right. Number 9. I don't see enough of this, but I'd like to see a lot more of this, that the buyers have signed an exclusive buyer agency agreement with you. Buyer agency agreement, they've signed that with you. Going back earlier in my career, I was working with one of my clients. I sold their townhome under contract. It didn't close yet. And we're looking for a house for them. We found one place, put a contract on it. Contract fell apart. We went to another one, put a contract on it, fell apart. This happened 3 times. And none of these 3 reasons, these 3 deals fell apart, could I directly blame on my buyer. It was a variety of reasons that were really more seller related, but I did not have an exclusive buyer agency agreement with them. After the 3rd deal fell apart, they went out and found it for sale by owner, bought it. I got paid nothing on that. And I worked with them way too long. Oh, I mean, I did sell that listing, but it's just wrong in my mind. So make sure you get a signed exclusive buyer agency agreement. Please get that done. And let's go to number 10 of the valid buyer criteria checklist. Number 10 is this. They're willing to use your recommendations for attorneys, lenders, home inspectors, whoever would be involved in the deal. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had lenders, attorneys, and home inspectors screw up deals for various reasons. Not that they were incompetent necessarily, which that has come up quite a few times in my career, but the communication and the style of everything can get disrupted, and that miscommunication can lead to deals falling apart. And as many deals as I've closed, well over 1,000 in my career, this is where it's a sticking point for me, that I want them to use my people. And if I'm doing 20 deals at 30, 40 deals at a time, I randomly call one attorney, one lender, one home inspector to find out all the information on those types of things. And some people will say to me, Brian, but my board of realtors says I have to give them 3 different people to use. Well, here's the thing. I want my clients to use the best people for their deal. And I have vetted them through the years. And if I ever had to go before a board on this, I will be happy to go for a board and say, look, this is the best attorney that I have found out there. And I want to make sure my client is using the best possible people because it's in their interest, in their best interest. So willing to use your recommendations. It will make your life easier too. But make sure you have good people. Don't do this if you don't have great people. Absolutely great people and recommendations. So that's number 10, willing to use your recommendations. That is the 10 criteria of a valid buyer. And that's the checklist for it. Now, wait, you said there was extra credit? I said there was extra credit. Bonus points, all right? So if you couldn't meet one of these, I'm really thinking like non-contingents on their home. They had to be contingent because they had to get the money out of their home to buy their next. They couldn't do a bridge loan. There's no other ways they could do it. All right, now here's how we can fill in that points here. Here's the next, let's just call it criteria. You ready for this? This one may be difficult for some of you, may be easy for others. You like them. It is more enjoyable to people. That's so many times in my career I've worked with people I really did not enjoy working with. So make that kind of a priority on there. So let's review. Can we do that? Of the valid buyer criteria checklist, number 1, they're willing to meet ahead of time. Number 2, they're motivated. 3, they have a sense of urgency. 4, they're willing to disclose all financial information. 5, they are fully pre-approved through underwriting with all paperwork submitted. 6, they are non-contingent on selling their home. 7, they are willing to spend time to buy a home. 8, you've had all the decision makers present while looking at homes. 9, they've signed an exclusive buyer agency agreement. And 10, they are willing to use your recommendations for lenders, attorneys, home inspectors, and whoever else that you would recommend. And then the bonus points. You like them. That is the criteria checklist. Now, if you'd like that checklist, I'm happy to get you a copy of that. Best way to reach me is probably my email, brian@brianernst.net. Okay. And happy to help if I can. Now, I also have that attached to a buyer intake form with the questions that I asked them that also, helps to complete the checklist, to make sure that checklist is completed. So I have a whole list of questions for that. And I do that for the seller side also. And this is what I found in my career is when I find a problem in the deal, where can I correct that from the beginning? What question could I have asked so I never get in that situation again? Because that is just so painful. When you think you've done everything right and it's like something came up. Oh, if I would have only asked that question from the beginning. And that's what I've done through my career. And I'm sharing that with you. And I hope you can use that. I hope you can stay out of the pain that I have been in trying to work with buyers and it just could have all been avoided by setting the right expectations, getting the right information up front, and making your life and their life so much easier, simpler, more enjoyable, because it can be a bumpy road, but it really doesn't have to be. So I want to thank you for watching this. I really do appreciate this. I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope you've gotten some from this. And if you do have, and you know other people that could benefit from this, please share that with them too, because I want to make sure that the agents out there, that you're getting what you need and you don't have to go through the stress, just the absolute agony. And especially if you need a deal to go through, you need that mortgage to get your mortgage to get paid, your rent to get paid, your car payment, insurance to get paid, that you have the income that you deserve. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.
My friends, that was Brian Ernst. Amazing session. Thank you, Brian, for being on the show. You're welcome back anytime. All right, so we're going to keep on grooving. So we've got one more session for you today. And this one might be pertinent for a few of us out there. So next up, we're talking to Dan Rochon about how to succeed as a part-time agent. This is going to be a quick hit for you, some quick tips and hits of success. So take it in and let's toss it over to Dan Rochon.
I'm so excited that you're here for today's training to learn how to succeed as a part-time agent, because what you're going to learn today is how you can balance, the full-time activities of a real estate agent with the rest of your life. So maybe you got your real estate license and maybe you're thinking at some point that you want to get, you want to go full-time, or maybe it's just a dual career and you want to continue as a part-time agent. Wherever you're at right now, you're perfectly perfect and you're exactly where you should be. I remember when I first got my real estate license, I was working as a bartender, and originally I was working for a bartender, say I think 4 days a week. And then within 6 months, I had scaled that back to around 2 days a week. And then I finally went full time into real estate sales in my 6 months in business. So I completely understand where you're at right now. Maybe you've got a job like I had where you can sort of scale back and you can take, a day off and a day off of your full-time schedule. But maybe you're in a place right now where you're not able to do that. You're working 5 days a week in a full-time commitment. And if you do want to transition into working as a full-time agent, I promise you that you could be able to do so. So some of the things that I've seen that agents have done is working as a part-time agent is that they sometimes make these mistakes that I want to encourage for you not to make. Okay. So sometimes they're not realistic about setting their goals or prioritizing their real estate work, or sometimes they are having challenges with their time management. But let me tell you the truth. Full-time agents have a hard time with their time management, right? So never mind, if you're having a problem with your time management, or a struggle rather, you're perfectly normal. It's okay. And it's not your fault that you're having those struggles. And I want to share with you today how you can be able to manage your time a little bit better. Or maybe you're just confused right now about what activities do I take to be able to produce results. So the key to success of being, of a part-time agent, to being able to discover, how you can, make sales in a way that you can be, dependent on, is that you want to make sure that you're laser focused on the activities that you take, that you're laser focused on the efforts that you put into this, because you have limited availability. You're probably struggling to build a client base. You have limited experience and expertise. You have maybe difficulty making multiple commitments. And again, if all that rings true to you, then you're in the right space, and meaning that you're in the right place to watch this class today. So I do encourage for you to stay till the very end of this, because at the end of the presentation, I'm going to share with you a download of how to have work-life balance. And if you're curious about how to do that, then I'll share that with you at the end of today's presentation. So have you ever heard of a gentleman named Mike Flint? Yeah, I didn't think so. How about a guy named Warren Buffett? Yeah, you've heard of him. Well, who's Mike Flint? Mike Flint was Warren Buffett's, I was going to go like this. I guess it would be like this. He was his airplane pilot for more than 10 years. And once upon a time, Mike was flying Warren's plane, and the story goes that Warren to the cockpit, looks at Mike and says, well, Mike, you've been working for me for 10 years. And oh, by the way, before he worked for Warren Buffett, Mike had worked for the president, flying Air Force One. And Warren's looking at Mike. He says, it looks like I have actually not done a great job in my job because you're still working for me. And Mike just sort of chuckled. He thought it was funny, but he, was curious. It's like, well, tell me more about that, Warren. And Mr. Buffett says to Mike, well, if your goal is to be my airplane pilot for the rest of your life, I guess I've succeeded. But if you have greater ambitions, then, maybe you should, consider Like, how can you reach those goals? So Mike, being curious and being super successful on his own right, asked Warren, well, tell me more about that. So Warren Buffett shares with Mike Flint, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and write down over the weekend, when we land wherever we're going, go ahead and write down your top 25 goals. And so pay attention to this story, because I'm going to ask for you to do the same activity, by the way. Write down your top 25 goals that you want to achieve as a real estate agent. Then you're done with writing down those goals after the weekend. Warren said to Mike, go ahead and circle your top 5 goals. And so he went and Mike circled his top 5 goals. And then Mike goes back to Warren. He says, okay, I've got my 25 goals and my 5 goals. So now what do I do? And Warren says, okay, you see those 20 goals? He says, cross all them out and never look at it ever again, unless until you create and reach one of your 5 goals. And so what I want you to consider is Warren's advice, and obviously we know that Warren Buffett is a successful person, was one such that what he's saying to Mike Flint is focus on less, not more. So particularly you as a part-time agent, you need to really, really focus on as few goals as possible. And now we're going to really lean into those goals. I would recommend to even put it down for 3. But the significant thing to that recommendation is you're not focusing on any other goal. You're only focusing on those 3 goals until you reach one of those 3 goals. Maybe you're in a position right now where you're challenged with maximizing your time management. And if you're challenged with maximizing your time management, I'm going to give you 6 steps that will allow for you to be able to be more effective. So we already talked about identifying your goals, and then we want to now identify what's our highest priority. So we've got 3 goals, and now of those 3 goals, and I want you to write this down on a piece of paper right now. So put your 3 goals at the top, and now what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 goal at a time. So remove 2 of those goals, and now it's 1 goal on the top of your paper. Okay, so for that 1 goal at the top of your paper, now what you're going to do is you're going to write, okay, what are 3 ways that I can achieve this goal? So maybe it's I want to close and work with 18 buyers this year. So if that's the case, or 12 buyers this year, whatever your number is, if that's the case, then you're going to say, well, what are the ways that I could achieve to work with those buyers? And you're going to identify 3 ways that you could do to be able to achieve that goal. So for example, maybe I'm going to network with my, full-time workplace, and I'm going to, make sure that they know that I'm a real estate agent. That's one way you could achieve your goal of 12 or 18 buyers. Another way that you could achieve your goal is, well, maybe I'll host some open houses on the weekend, and I'll host X amount of open houses every single week. Well, that's another way that you could achieve the goal of 12 to 18 buyers. What's a third way that you could achieve your goal? Well, maybe I'll do some Facebook ads, and I will call those buyers as soon as they click onto the link and see if they have a need to be able to purchase real estate. That's another way that you could do that. So now that you've identified, okay, what's my goal? And you're going to do that for each of the 3 goals. You're going to do that exercise. So what's my 1 goal, one of the 3, and then what's my 3 ways that I can achieve that goal? Then what you're going to do for each of these activities here, what are activities that I can do for the first one, for example, which is network with my business partners, with the people in my full-time job? What are 5 ways that you could do that? A way that you could do that would be something like I can go to the cafeteria and eat lunch with friends. I could go to the company, the networking events, or a professional networking event, or whatever the case may be. And you're going to be able to identify a plan to be able to achieve your goals. You're going to want to know how much time am I going to invest into each activity, and then you're going to schedule your priorities. You're going to put your most important time into your calendar first. I'll talk to you more about that here in a second. You're going to want to add buffer time in between your priorities, and then you're going to want to remove all the rest of the stuff, the less essential stuff to your task. So I mentioned to you that I was going to tell you a little bit more about how to spend your time. Now, again, here's 5 activities. And really write this down, because if you never heard this before, This is critical to you. These 5 activities return you money. This is your job description as a real estate agent. So as a part-time agent, you got to be super focused on these 5 activities. The 5 activities, we call that CPI time, for consistent predictable income time. Number 1 is to lead generate. The definition of lead generation is just simply to go and, to seek business. You can do so through prospecting or networking or through marketing. Number 2 is to convert those meetings to meet with you, to convert those people to meet with you. Number 3 is to go on an appointment for the purpose to get hired. Number 4 is to negotiate. And number 5 is to practice your scripts and role play. When you do those 5 activities, you will generate money. So now that you know what to focus on, you know where to put your laser focus into. CPI time, again, lead generate, convert those leads to appointment, go on the appointments for the purpose to get hired, negotiate, and practice your scripts and role play. Now you know how to be able to generate, or how to be able to spend your time so that you can generate more business. Now, if you've struggled with getting it all done and maybe you're experiencing a little bit of overwhelmed, and if that's you, I'm going to invite for you to download a guide of how to have work-life balance. And when you download this guide, you're going to improve your physical and your mental health. You're going to increase your productivity and creativity. You're going to have stronger relationships, and you're going to really learn how to be able to position yourself so that you can be more successful as a part-time agent. You can scan the code that was on that screen, or you can visit www.nobrokemonths.com/free guide for part-time agent. And there's a dash in between each of those words. So it's free guide for part-time agent. So www.nobrokemonths.com/free guide for part-time agent. That's a tongue twister right there. Thank you so much for joining my presentation today. I want to encourage you to have the best day of your life. I want to share with you and invite you to make good choices, to help somebody, to be grateful, and to go find some business. God bless you. I'll see you.